Her ex mocked her in front of his wealthy fiancée, certain she was still the woman he had left behind. Then, Chicago's most feared Mafia boss crossed the room, placed one hand at her waist, and kissed her before everyone. Claire Bennett had promised herself she would not cry that night. Outside rain streaked the restaurant windows. Inside, crystal glasses gleamed while Grant Holloway reduced years of her sacrifice to one cruel joke about her career. She wanted to defend herself, but some wounds teach the body to freeze before the mind can fight back. What happened next was not simply revenge. It was the beginning of a dangerous bargain, a hidden war, and a woman learning that being chosen means nothing until she chooses herself. Stay until the end, because one kiss will change every life in that room. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. The kiss had silenced the room, but Claire Bennett had not arrived at the engagement dinner expecting anyone to save her. That morning, she stood barefoot in the narrow bathroom of her Lincoln Park apartment, staring at her reflection beneath a light that made everyone look tired. Bar exam flashcards covered half the counter. A cold cup of coffee sat beside them. Her dark green dress hung from the shower rod. Claire looked at herself and said, "Seeing him does not change who I am." The sentence sounded weak in the small room. She tried again. "Seeing him does not change who I am." Her phone buzzed against the sink. Megan had sent 4 messages before 8 in the morning. "Please tell me you are still coming tonight. I need my favorite cousin there. Mom is already trying to change the seating chart. And please do not make me face Aunt Linda alone." Claire smiled, despite herself. She typed, "Will Grant be there?" The message showed as delivered. No answer came. Claire watched the screen, then set the phone down. The silence told her enough. For 3 years, she had imagined what it would feel like to see Grant Holloway again. In some versions, she looked radiant and indifferent. In others, he apologized. In the most honest version, she saw him and felt nothing. That was the version she wanted. It was also the one she trusted least. She turned toward the dress. Dark green, simple, elegant, and unfamiliar. Grant had never seen it. No memory lived inside it. That mattered more than she wanted to admit. At 9:30, Claire was already at Lawson & Pierce, the law firm where she had worked for 5 years. Their offices occupied the 23rd floor of a glass tower near the river. A stack of exhibits waited beside her keyboard. Her supervising attorney, Rebecca Lawson, had a federal filing due before noon, and one of the junior associates had spent the morning turning a manageable problem into a crisis. Claire found him near the printer, pale and whispering into his phone. "No, I checked the index. I checked it twice." Claire set her bag down. "What is missing?" Exhibit 14. The deposition reference is in the brief, but the document is not in the production folder. Claire held out her hand. He passed her the file. She scanned the citation, opened the database, and searched by witness name. 40 seconds later, she found the deposition under an incorrect date. It was uploaded with the amended production set, she said. The index was never updated. He exhaled. "How did you know opposing counsel changed the numbering after the second discovery conference? You remembered that I was there." He gave her an embarrassed nod. "Right." Claire had learned that some people could accept being rescued more easily than they could accept that the rescue came from a paralegal. Rebecca appeared in her doorway, silver glasses low on her nose. "Claire, my office." Inside, Rebecca placed the corrected exhibit list on her desk. "You caught the witness contradiction too. The timeline did not match the phone records. You saved us from filing a brief that opposing counsel would have enjoyed tearing apart." Claire smiled. "That is what you pay me for." "No, I pay you to manage files and keep attorneys from setting themselves on fire. What you did was legal analysis." Claire looked through the glass wall toward the city. "You should already be practicing law," Rebecca said. "I am working on it. You postponed the exam once, I know. Your registration closes soon. I know that too." Rebecca studied her. "Intelligence is not your problem, Claire." Claire forced a lighter tone. "That is comforting. Fear is." The word settled between them. Rebecca did not know how many times Grant had asked why Claire needed a law degree when she already had a stable job. She did not know that he had called her ambition impractical until Claire began repeating the word to herself. "I will register," Claire said. Rebecca nodded once. "Good." At lunch, Megan finally called. Claire stepped into an empty conference room. "You avoided my question," Megan sighed. Grant will be there, and you waited until today to tell me. I found out 2 days ago. Ethan invited several people from the firm, and Grant is working with one of their clients. You had 2 days. I thought if I told you, you would cancel. Claire looked at the gray river below. You were right. Claire, I am still coming. Megan went quiet. You do not have to prove anything, she said. I am not going for him. I am going for you. I can move your seat. That will make everyone notice. I can have him removed. It is your engagement dinner, not a hostage negotiation. Megan laughed once, but Claire heard the worry beneath it. I am sorry. 3 years earlier, Megan had sat on Claire's apartment floor while Grant packed the last of his things. She stayed after he left, changed the sheets, ordered food, and slept beside Claire because silence felt dangerous that night. Claire could not punish her for wanting one happy dinner. I will stay through dessert. Leave whenever you need. I know. After the call, Claire returned to her desk and opened the bar registration page. She filled in her information. At the payment screen, she hesitated for only a moment. Then she clicked Submit. The confirmation email arrived at 2:14. Her hands were steady. By 6:30, she stood in front of the mirror again. Her hair fell in loose waves over one shoulder. The green dress fit close at the waist and ended below her knees. She wore small silver earrings from her mother and her grandmother's ring on her right hand. Nothing about her looked dramatic. That comforted her. She took a cab downtown. Rain tapped against the windows as the city passed in blurred gold and white. Chicago looked most beautiful when it was cold enough to keep people moving. The restaurant occupied the upper floor of a restored building beside the river. Inside, dark wood framed wide windows. Crystal lights hung above white tables. A jazz trio played near the bar. Megan met Claire at the entrance in a pale blue dress. You came. You sound surprised. I am relieved. They embraced. He is near the windows, Megan whispered. Claire felt the sentence before she understood it. Her eyes moved across the room. Grant stood with one hand in his pocket, laughing beside a woman in red. For a moment, Claire saw the man who once ate takeout noodles on the floor because they had no dining table. The man who practiced interview answers while she ironed his shirt. The man who kissed her forehead and promised that one day he would give her everything. Then he turned. The silver watch on his wrist caught the light. Claire had bought it after his first major promotion. She had saved for 3 months. The memory vanished. Beside him, Sloane Kensington held a glass of champagne. Her engagement ring flashed each time she moved her hand. She was beautiful in the effortless way wealth often tried to imitate. Megan touched Claire's arm. We can sit on the other side. No, Claire. If I rearrange the room around him, he still controls it. Megan searched her face. Stay near me? Claire nodded. They moved toward the family table. Ethan greeted Claire and introduced her to 2 colleagues. One mentioned a shipping client whose contract Claire had recently reviewed. Moretti Maritime, the attorney said. You caught the indemnity issue, right? It was buried in the amendment. It would have cost them millions. Before Claire could answer, Ethan looked toward the entrance. A tall man had entered the room. He wore a black suit without a tie. Rain darkened the shoulders of his coat. 2 men remained outside while he stepped inside alone. Something changed in the room. People straightened, conversations lowered. Ethan excused himself and crossed the room. Who is that? Claire asked. Dante Moretti, Megan said. The shipping client, the owner. Claire looked again. Dante appeared to be in his mid-30s. His face was composed, his movements unhurried. A pale scar cut close to his jaw. He listened to Ethan without interrupting, yet Ethan looked like the one waiting for permission to continue. Claire had met powerful men before. Most wanted the room to know it. Dante looked as though he had never needed to announce anything. His gaze moved past Ethan and found Claire. For 1 second they looked at each other. Then Megan asked about the seating cards and Claire turned away. Dinner had not started when Grant approached. Claire sensed him before he spoke. Some voices lived in the body long after the person was gone. Claire Bennett. She turned. Grant smiled as if they were old friends. Grant. He looked her over slowly. I almost did not recognize you. You recognized me quickly enough to say my full name. His smile tightened. Sloane stepped beside him. Claire, this is Sloane Kensington, my fiancée. Sloane extended her hand. I have heard so much about you. Claire shook it. That makes one of us. Surprise crossed Sloane's face. Grant laughed too loudly. Claire always had a dry sense of humor. The people nearest them began to listen. Grant placed his hand at Sloane's waist. This is the woman I told you about. We dated before my life became complicated. Claire heard the meaning beneath the words. Before success, before money, before Sloane. Sloane studied Claire's dress shoes, earrings, and grandmother's ring. Grant continued. She was working a front desk back then. I assume you are still doing something similar. Claire looked at him. He had watched her study case law at their kitchen table. He had once asked her to review his employment contract because he did not understand it. I am a senior paralegal, Claire said. Grant lifted his eyebrows. Of course I forgot. No, Claire said quietly, you did not. The air around them sharpened. Grant glanced at the people nearby and smiled. You always took titles very seriously. Claire felt heat rise beneath her skin. He leaned closer. You were happier before you started chasing things that did not suit you. The sentence struck with the precision of an old weapon. For a moment, Claire was back in their apartment holding a law school brochure while Grant told her she should be grateful for stability. She remembered how slowly his doubt became her own voice. She wanted to tell him she had registered for the bar exam that afternoon. She wanted to say that a man who had needed her sacrifice had no right to mock the life she built after he left. Her throat closed. Grant saw it. His expression softened with satisfaction. Then a warm hand settled lightly at the center of Claire's back. Every muscle in her body went still. A low voice spoke beside her. Do you want him to stop? Claire turned. Dante Moretti stood close enough that she could see the rain caught in his dark hair. He was not looking at Grant. He was looking only at her. Claire did not know him or why he was offering. But for the first time that evening, someone had asked what she wanted. She gave the smallest nod. Dante's gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. There you are, he said loud enough for the room to hear. I have been looking everywhere for you. He touched her jaw with careful fingers and kissed her. The room disappeared. Claire heard the faint intake of breath nearby. Dante's hand remained steady against her back. He did not pull her closer until her fingers closed around his jacket. The kiss was controlled, deliberate, and devastatingly sure. When he lifted his head, Claire's heart beat in her throat. Grant stared at them. Sloane had stopped smiling. Dante kept one hand at Claire's waist and extended the other. Dante Moretti. Grant hesitated before taking it. Grant Holloway. I know. The confidence drained from Grant's face. Dante glanced at Claire. Were you discussing her career? Grant gave an uneven laugh. Just remembering old times. Claire worked as a receptionist. Interesting. Dante's thumb moved once against Claire's waist. My attorneys describe her as one of the most capable legal minds in their office. Claire turned toward him. Dante looked back at Grant. I have spent 6 months trying to convince her to become my wife. A woman near the bar gasped. Sloane looked at Claire as though she had become someone else in the space of a breath. Grant's jaw tightened. You are engaged. Not yet, Dante said. I am still waiting for her answer. Dante guided Claire toward the doors. Behind them, Grant found his voice. Claire, what the hell is this? She stopped. Dante stopped with her, but he said nothing. Claire turned. It is the first time tonight you have asked me a question instead of telling people who you think I am. Then she walked out beside Dante. The doors closed behind them. Cold air met Claire's face. Rainwater shone on the pavement beneath the streetlights. A black sedan waited at the curb. Claire stepped away from Dante. The heat of his hand vanished from her waist. She touched her lips once. Who are you? Dante watched her calmly. The man who made your evening more complicated. You kissed me in front of my entire family. You nodded. I nodded because you asked whether I wanted Grant to stop. Dante considered her words. That is fair. Claire folded her arms. You lied to 40 people and told them you wanted to marry me. For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. That part requires a better explanation. Claire held his gaze. Then start explaining. Dante looked at Claire for a long moment. Rainwater slid from the edge of the restaurant awning and struck the pavement beside them in a steady rhythm. Cars moved along the river, their headlights stretching across the wet street like pale ribbons. The black sedan remained at the curb. One of the men beside it opened the rear door. Dante did not move toward the car. "My name is Dante Moretti," he said. "I heard that part. I own Moretti Maritime. I heard that too." Claire held his gaze. "What I did not hear was why you knew my job, why Grant looked terrified when you introduced yourself, or why you decided the most reasonable response to an awkward conversation was pretending we were engaged." Dante glanced toward the restaurant doors. "They are watching us." Claire turned slightly. Several faces disappeared from the windows. "Let them watch." A faint trace of approval touched his expression. "You do not like being observed. I do not like being discussed by people who do not know me. That explains Grant. It explains you, too." The answer landed cleanly. Dante gave a slight nod. "Fair." Claire did not relax. He had admitted fault twice now, but calm agreement did not make him safe. Men like Grant defended themselves with excuses. A man like Dante seemed to have no need for them. That disturbed her more. "How do you know where I work? Ethan Callahan represents one of my companies. A few months ago, my legal team nearly approved a contract with a liability clause that could have exposed us to several $1,000,000 in losses." Claire remembered the document. A shipping vendor had buried the clause inside an amendment attached to the final draft. 2 associates had reviewed it before the file reached her desk. "You were the one who found it," Dante said. "I corrected the index. You identified the contradiction. That was my job. Most people do only enough to avoid blame." Claire studied him. "Ethan told you my name. He mentioned it during a meeting. I remembered." Why, Dante slipped one hand into his coat pocket. "Competence is rare. That sounds like something a man says when he wants praise for noticing women can think." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Is that what Grant did?" "Grant praised me when my intelligence was useful to him. The moment it threatened his idea of where I belonged, he called it ambition." Dante looked through the glass doors toward the private dining room. Grant stood near the window, speaking quickly to Sloane. Even from outside, Claire could see the tension in his shoulders. "I knew him before tonight," Dante said. Claire looked back at him. "How he approached Moretti Maritime about an investment." "Grant works for a private equity firm, I know." Dante's voice changed slightly. It remained calm, but the warmth left it. "He presented a proposal involving property near our Southside terminals. During the meeting, he interrupted my chief financial officer 4 times. He called one of my analysts sweetheart. He assumed my assistant was a waiter." Claire closed her eyes for half a second. "That sounds like him. He also lied about the projected returns. Did you reject the proposal I rejected him?" Claire almost smiled. "Is that why he looked afraid?" "No." The answer came too quickly. Claire noticed. Then why Dante's gaze moved to the street. "Grant works in rooms where people trade influence. Men in those rooms understand that some names carry more weight than others. That is not an answer. It is the answer I am willing to give tonight." Claire's shoulders stiffened. "You kissed me, lied to my family, and used me to humiliate a man you already disliked. You do not get to become mysterious now." Dante looked at her again. "I did not use you to humiliate him. You announced that I was the woman you wanted to marry. I wanted him to understand that the woman he was mocking was standing beside someone he could not intimidate." Claire laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "I was standing there before you arrived." Dante went still. The city seemed louder in the silence between them. Claire continued. "I know I froze. I know I did not defend myself quickly enough, but I was still there. I did not become worthy because you placed your hand on my waist." His expression changed. It was subtle, but she saw it. Not anger. Recognition. "You are right," he said. Claire had prepared herself for resistance. The simple admission caught her off guard. Dante stepped back, giving her more space. "I saw a man trying to reduce you in front of an audience. I understood the kind of language he respected, so I spoke it. You made yourself the center of the solution. Yes, I did not ask for that. No." The rain continued to strike the pavement. Dante lowered his voice. "I should have helped without deciding what help had to look like." Claire watched him carefully. Men apologized in different ways. Some apologized because they wanted silence. Some wanted forgiveness before they had finished speaking. Dante did not seem to want either. He simply stood there and let the truth remain uncomfortable. "Why did you ask before kissing me?" she said. His eyes moved to her lips for an instant. Because you were the only person in that room who had the right to decide. You asked whether I wanted Grant to stop. I believed you understood what I was offering. I understood that you were going to interrupt him. I did not know you planned to create a fictional engagement. The engagement was not planned. That makes it worse. Probably. Claire stared at him. You agree too easily. I disagree when there is something worth defending, and this is not no. The restaurant doors opened behind them. Ethan stepped outside, pulling his jacket closed against the cold. Claire. He looked from her to Dante. Megan wants to know whether you're all right. Claire took out her phone. 16 unread messages filled the screen. 3 were from Megan, 2 were from her mother. 1 was from Aunt Linda, who had written only, "Why did no one tell me?" The others were from numbers Claire did not recognize. I will call her, Claire said. Ethan hesitated. His gaze settled on Dante. Everything inside is under control. Dante's expression remained unreadable. Is Grant still there? Yes. Keep him away from the door. Ethan nodded immediately. Claire noticed. It was not the way an attorney answered a client. It was the way someone responded to an order. Dante seemed to realize she had seen it. Ethan turned back toward Claire. For what it is worth, Grant deserved what happened. That does not make it less complicated. No, Ethan said. It does not. He went back inside. Claire waited until the doors closed. What kind of client tells his attorney who can approach a door? The kind whose attorney understands when a situation could become unpleasant. Unpleasant for whom Dante did not answer. A man beside the sedan touched 2 fingers to an earpiece. He crossed the sidewalk. He was broad-shouldered and perhaps 40, with close-cropped hair and a face that revealed nothing. Mr. Moretti. Dante turned. There is a problem at the harbor. What kind? The man glanced at Claire. Dante's expression cooled. You can speak. Warehouse 7. The night supervisor found a broken seal on one of the containers. 2 drivers are missing. Police. Not yet. Keep it that way until Luca arrives. The man nodded. His coat shifted as he turned. Claire saw the outline of a pistol beneath it. Every question in her mind sharpened at once. The man returned to the car. Claire looked at Dante. What kind of shipping company has armed employees waiting outside an engagement dinner? The kind that transports cargo worth more than most buildings. Are the weapons legal? Yes. That was not the important part of the question. No. Dante took out his phone and sent a short message. Claire watched his face. There was no panic in him, no sudden urgency, only a quiet concentration that made the men around him move faster. You should go, she said. I will, good, after I know you are safely home. Claire shook her head. You do not get to make that decision either. I am not trying to control you. You have known me for less than 30 minutes, and you have already kissed me, proposed to me, ordered an attorney to guard a door, and decided how I am getting home. Dante looked toward the sedan. When you put it that way, the evening sounds excessive. It was excessive before I put it anyway. He almost smiled. Claire noticed and resented that she wanted to see the full version. I can call a cab, she said. At this hour in this weather, after Grant has been drinking, Grant is inside. He may not stay there. I can handle Grant, I believe you. Then stop behaving as though you do not. Dante studied her. A gust of wind moved along the street, carrying the smell of rain and river water. Claire wrapped her arms around herself. Dante removed his coat. She lifted a hand. No. You are cold. I am angry. You can be both. I am not taking your coat. He placed it over his arm instead of arguing. Then let me walk you somewhere. Claire looked at the sedan, then at the armed man near it. I am not getting into that car. Reasonable. There is a coffee shop 2 blocks away. Dante glanced toward his men. One of them straightened. Claire continued. You owe me answers. You can buy me coffee while you decide how much truth you are capable of telling. The man beside the sedan looked at Dante as if no one had spoken to him that way in years. Dante did not look offended. He looked interested. Marco, he said. The armed man stepped forward. Handle the harbor without me. Dante. The use of his first name carried a warning. Dante's voice remained quiet. Call Luca. Lock down the terminal. No one enters or leaves until he confirms what was taken. Marco looked at Claire, then back at Dante. Understood. Dante gestured toward the sidewalk. Lead the way. Claire began walking. She expected him to fall half a step ahead the way powerful men often did without noticing. He matched her pace instead. The coffee shop stood on a corner between a bookstore and a closed tailor. Warm yellow light filled the windows. A handwritten sign near the door promised fresh pie until midnight. Claire chose a table in the far corner. It faced both the entrance and the street. Dante sat across from her. "You always choose a seat with a view of the exits?" he asked. "Only when drinking coffee with suspicious men." "Should I be concerned? You arrived with armed employees. They stayed outside. That is not the defense you think it is." The server approached. Claire ordered black coffee. Dante ordered espresso. When they were alone again, Claire folded her hands on the table. "Start with something simple. Why were you at Megan's dinner? Ethan invited me. Why his firm represents Moretti Maritime. He believed it would be good for me to meet several people involved in a waterfront development project. Grant's project related to it." "Did you know Grant would be there?" "No." "Did you know I would be there?" "No." Claire searched his face for hesitation. There was none. "So you saw a stranger being humiliated and decided to intervene?" "Yes." Why, Dante looked down at the small cup the server placed before him. He waited until she walked away. "Because everyone else was watching." Claire said nothing. Dante turned the cup once between his fingers. When cruelty becomes public, people often pretend it is entertainment. They laugh because they are relieved not to be the person standing alone. His voice was even, but something beneath it had tightened. "You have seen that before," Claire said. "Yes." With whom? Dante lifted his eyes. "My mother." Claire waited. For several seconds he gave her nothing more. She could have pushed. She chose not to. The silence changed between them, not softer, more honest. Claire wrapped both hands around her cup. Grant was not always like that. Most cruel men are charming when cruelty would cost them something. She looked at him. That sounded practiced. "I have met many men like Grant and none like yourself." Dante leaned back slightly. "I did not say that." Claire studied the scar near his jaw. "What happened there?" "Someone disagreed with me. Did you disagree back?" "Yes." There was no pride in his answer. That made it worse. Claire looked through the window. Across the street, one of Dante's men stood beneath an awning, pretending to check his phone. "You said your employees stayed outside." "They did. They followed us. They are doing their jobs." "What exactly is their job? To make sure I return home. Alive, preferably." Claire laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised them both. Dante's expression shifted. For the first time, his smile reached his eyes. It transformed his face. The danger remained, but it no longer looked carved from stone. "You find that amusing?" he asked. "I find you strange." "That is not the same thing." "No. Strange is kinder. I will accept it." Claire took a sip of coffee. "Tell me about Moretti Maritime." "My father started with 2 warehouses near Lake Michigan and 3 trucks he could barely afford. You inherited it when he died." "I am sorry." Dante inclined his head. "He built the company quickly, faster than anyone thought possible." How his fingers became still around the cup. By understanding that Chicago was built on movement, steel, grain, liquor, money, people. Everything powerful in this city has always needed a way to travel. That sounded rehearsed. It is the version we use at corporate events. And the unrehearsed version, my father understood that people pay more for certainty than they do for transportation. Claire held his gaze. What did he guarantee? That cargo arrived, that debts were honored, that agreements were respected. And if they were not? Dante took a slow drink of espresso. Consequences. The word was soft. Claire felt it like a hand closing around the room. "You are not just a businessman." "No." "What are you?" Dante looked toward the window. The man across the street had disappeared. "You should be careful asking questions when you are not certain you want the answers." Claire felt anger rise again. "Do not do that." "Do what?" "Turn a warning into something seductive." His eyes returned to hers. "I was not trying to seduce you. You are very good at it by accident." For the first time, Dante looked caught off guard. Claire felt heat rise into her face. She looked down at her coffee. "That was not what I meant. I think it was. It was an observation. One I appreciate." She shook her head. "Your confidence is exhausting. So is your suspicion. My suspicion has evidence. So does my confidence." Claire tried not to smile. She failed. The moment stretched. Outside rain slid down the glass. Inside, the low hum of the refrigerator blended with soft music from an old speaker near the counter. For a few minutes they talked about ordinary things. Claire told him she had worked at Lawson and Pierce since finishing college. She explained that she had planned to attend law school immediately, but money, family obligations, and Grant's doubts had delayed her. Dante listened without checking his phone. It was such a simple act that Claire almost did not recognize why it affected her. "You registered for the exam today," he said. She stared at him. "How did you know you used the past tense when you spoke about postponing it? That is an irritating habit." Listening, noticing. Grant did neither. The words were not a question. Claire looked into her cup. "He listened when he needed something. When he wanted help preparing for interviews, I was brilliant. When I wanted something for myself, I was unrealistic." Dante's jaw tightened. "I used to think if I explained myself clearly enough, he would understand," she continued. "Then I realized he understood perfectly. He just preferred the version of me that required less from him. That says more about him than you." "I know. Do you believe it?" Claire looked at him. "Some days." Dante did not offer comfort. He did not tell her she was stronger than Grant or that she should forget him. He simply nodded as though some truths deserved time before they became part of the body. "What about you?" Claire asked. "Why does a man surrounded by employees eat alone at midnight?" "I am not alone. You know what I mean." Dante looked at the empty tables around them. "Most people I meet decide what they want from me before they ask who I am. What do they want? Money, access, protection, fear. Fear. Some people believe being close to a dangerous man makes them dangerous too." Claire traced one finger around the edge of her cup. "And what did you think I wanted? Nothing. That interested you. It made you unusual. Maybe I had not recognized you yet. You still do not know who I am. That is becoming obvious." His phone vibrated. Dante checked the screen. The calm left his face. "What happened?" Claire asked. "The missing drivers were found. Are they alive?" "Yes. And the cargo untouched. Then why do you look like that?" Dante placed the phone face down. "Because whoever broke the seal did not want what was inside. What did they want? To send a message." Before Claire could ask more, a white flash lit the window. Dante moved instantly. He reached across the table and pulled Claire down as another flash struck from across the street. A camera. Someone was photographing them. Dante stood. The man who had been watching from outside was already running toward the corner. Claire rose more slowly. Her pulse hammered. "It is a photographer," she said. "Maybe. You just pulled me under a table." I did not know what he was holding. The server stared at them from behind the counter. Dante placed cash beside the espresso cup. "Come with me." Claire followed him outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the street cold and bright beneath the lamps. Marco's sedan reached the curb before they did. The rear door opened. Claire did not argue this time. She got inside. Dante entered beside her. The car moved before the door had fully closed. Claire looked through the rear window. A man with a camera stood at the end of the block while one of Dante's employees took the memory card from his hand. "What happens to him?" she asked. "He answers questions." "Then what?" "That depends on his answers." Claire turned toward Dante. His face was shadowed in the dim car. "What was the message at the harbor? I do not know yet. Was it connected to tonight? I do not know. Is someone watching you always?" The word settled heavily between them. Claire looked down at her hands. Dante's coat lay between them on the seat. "You need to go home," he said. "That was already the plan. You should not return to work alone tomorrow." Claire's head came up. "No, the photographs will be public by morning. So half of Chicago may believe you belong to me." Claire held his gaze. And the other half, Dante looked toward the rain-streaked window. "They may decide that makes you useful." The city passed beyond the dark windows of the sedan, all wet pavement and blurred light. Claire sat very still. Dante watched her without speaking. She had expected him to soften the warning once he saw fear reach her face. Grant would have. He would have hidden the truth, then called the lie protection. Dante did not. "How useful?" Claire asked. "That depends on who saw the photographs. You said a photographer took them." "I said he had a camera." Claire looked toward the front seat. Marco was speaking quietly into his phone while the driver moved through traffic. You think someone sent him? I think people rarely stand in the rain outside a nearly empty coffee shop by accident. Who would care who you drink coffee with? Dante's gaze remained on her. People who want something from me, and now they think I can help them get it. Yes. Claire looked down at her hands. An hour ago, Grant had been the most dangerous thing in the room. Now his cruelty felt almost ordinary. What happens when the photographs are published that depends on the story attached to them? The story is already inside that restaurant. Dante said nothing. Claire understood. 40 guests had heard him claim he had spent 6 months trying to marry her. By sunrise, the lie would belong to strangers. You planned none of this, she said. No, yet you seem very calm. Panic does not improve a situation. Does anything frighten you? His expression did not change, but the silence lasted too long. Yes. Claire waited. He did not explain. The sedan turned onto her street. She looked toward the brick apartment building where she had lived for 4 years. Her bedroom window was dark. The flower shop beneath her building had already closed. Dante studied the entrance. You live alone. That is not your business. It became my business when someone photographed us. No, it became your concern. Those are different things. His eyes returned to hers. You make distinctions when you are angry. I make distinctions because words matter. The sedan stopped. Marco stepped out first and checked the sidewalk. Claire reached for the door. Dante caught the handle before she could open it. Wait. I am capable of walking 20 feet. I know. Marco gave a signal from the entrance. Dante released the handle. Claire stepped onto the sidewalk. Dante followed her to the building. She unlocked the outer door, then turned. You can stop here. I want to check the apartment. No. Claire, you have already changed enough of my evening. If someone knows your address, they may have entered before we arrived. The possibility sent a cold line down her back. She hated that it made sense. You stay behind me, she said. Dante raised one eyebrow. It is my apartment. He almost argued. Then he nodded. Claire opened the door. They climbed 3 flights in silence. Dante moved quietly for a man of his size. Marco followed several steps behind them. At Claire's apartment, the lock appeared untouched. She entered first and switched on the light. Nothing had moved. Books were stacked beside the couch. Bar exam notes covered the dining table. A sweater rested over the back of a chair. Dante stepped inside and looked around. Claire suddenly saw the apartment through his eyes. The narrow kitchen, the second-hand furniture, the framed photograph of her and Megan at Lake Michigan, the unpaid utility bill beneath a casebook. She crossed her arms. It is not a waterfront estate. I did not say anything. You looked. I always look. Marco checked the windows and bedroom, then returned. Clear. Dante nodded. Marco left without another word. Claire locked the door behind him. Dante remained near the entrance. She expected his presence to make the apartment feel smaller. Instead, it made the silence feel heavier. What happens now, she asked. I place someone outside. No, not inside. No, he will remain across the street. Still no. Dante studied her. You saw the photographer. I also saw your men take his camera. That does not mean there was only one copy. Claire rubbed her forehead. I have work in the morning. I know. I am not arriving with armed security. They do not need to be visible. That does not make it normal. Normal is no longer the relevant standard. She looked at him sharply. You do not get to say that as though I had no life before you walked into that restaurant. Dante's face tightened. You are right. The apology did not calm her. Claire moved toward the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. You should go. Dante did not move. If the photographs appear, do not answer questions. I know how to speak to people. Do not confirm anything about us. There is no us. His gaze held hers. That will not matter to the people asking. Claire set the glass down. Then perhaps you should deny it. I will consider the consequences first. For whom? For you. She laughed without humor. There it is again. What you deciding what protects me? Dante crossed the room slowly. He stopped several feet away. I made a reckless choice tonight. I will not make another one by pretending it created no danger. Claire looked at him. For the first time since the restaurant, he seemed tired. Not physically. The exhaustion sat deeper beneath the discipline and calm. Put someone across the street, she said. No one enters this building. No one follows me into my office. No one speaks to my neighbors. Dante inclined his head. Agreed. And I want to know what happens with the photographer. You will, every part of it. Yes. Claire opened the door. Dante stepped into the hallway. Before leaving, he looked back at her. Lock both locks. I always do. Good night, Claire. She almost answered. Then she remembered the warmth of his mouth and the weight of his hand at her waist. Good night, Dante. She closed the door. Sleep came slowly. Every sound in the building seemed sharper than usual. Pipes shifted inside the walls. A car door slammed below. Somewhere upstairs, a child began crying and was quietly comforted. Claire checked the window twice. A dark sedan remained parked across the street. At 7 the next morning, her phone began vibrating across the nightstand. Megan called first, then Rebecca, then her mother. Claire opened one eye and reached for the screen. Dozens of messages waited. A photograph filled the top of her social media feed. Dante stood beneath the restaurant lights with one hand against Claire's back. Her fingers were gripping his jacket. Grant was visible behind them, his face frozen in disbelief. The headline read, Dante Moretti reveals mystery woman at private Chicago dinner. A second image showed Claire and Dante leaving the coffee shop. Another headline called her the secret fiancée of Chicago's most elusive shipping heir. Claire sat upright. Her phone rang again. Megan, Claire answered. You are alive. I was sleeping. You kissed Dante Moretti, I remember, in front of Aunt Linda. That is the part that concerns you. Aunt Linda has already created a family message group called Claire's Wedding. Claire closed her eyes. Megan, I know. I removed you. Thank you. Who is he? I met him last night. There was silence. You met him last night, yes. You let a stranger tell everyone he wanted to marry you. I did not let him. Megan lowered her voice. Ethan says Dante does not joke about things like that. Ethan needs better clients. He also says Grant left right after you did. Claire felt nothing at first, then relief. Good. Grant called Ethan twice asking how long you have known Dante. What did Ethan say, that it was none of his business? Claire smiled. Tell Ethan I appreciate him. Claire, are you safe? The question erased the smile. Yes. She looked through the window. The sedan remained outside. I am safe. At the office, the lobby receptionist stared at her. So did 2 associates in the elevator. Claire kept her eyes on the numbers above the door. On the 23rd floor, a bouquet of white roses waited on her desk. The arrangement was elegant and restrained. No ribbon, no expensive vase. A small card rested between the stems. We need to discuss the consequences of my improvisation. Dante. Claire turned the card over. Nothing else. Rebecca appeared beside the desk. Do you want to tell me why our most intimidating client sent you flowers? Number good? I was hoping for a quiet morning. Claire set down her bag. Is this going to affect my job? Rebecca considered the question seriously. It will affect how people behave around you. That is not what I asked. No. Your work remains your work. Dante Moretti does not get to change that. Claire exhaled. Thank you. Rebecca lowered her voice. Should I be worried? I'm not sure yet. That is not reassuring. It is honest. Before Rebecca could respond, the receptionist called. There is a man downstairs asking for Claire. Claire knew before she asked. Who, Grant Holloway? Rebecca's expression hardened. Do you want security? Claire looked at the photograph still open on her phone. No. I want 5 minutes. Grant waited in the lobby wearing yesterday's suit beneath an overcoat. His eyes were bloodshot. He turned when Claire approached. What were you thinking? Claire stopped several feet away. Good morning to you too. Do not do that. Do what? Pretend this is normal. You came to my office before 9 in the morning. You humiliated me. Claire stared at him. Grant continued. You knew Dante would be there. I did not. You expect me to believe that I stopped expecting anything from you 3 years ago? His jaw tightened. You staged that entire scene. Why would I, to make me jealous? To make Sloan think you moved on? Claire almost laughed. Do you truly believe my life still revolves around making you feel something? Grant stepped closer. You do not know what kind of man he is, neither do you. I know enough, then tell me. Grant looked toward the security desk. He is dangerous. So you keep saying. People disappear around men like Moretti. Claire studied him. There was fear beneath his anger. Real fear. "Why did you want his investment?" she asked. Grant's expression changed. "Who told you about that?" "He did." Grant looked away. Claire continued. "You went to him for money. He rejected you. Then you mocked me in front of him. This is not about business. It is always about business with you. I'm trying to protect you." The words brought something cold into Claire's chest. "You do not get to use that word." Grant looked at her. "You left me after making me question everything I wanted. You told people I worked reception because my real job did not fit the story you wanted to tell. Last night you tried to make me small in front of strangers." His face tightened. "I was joking." "No, you were performing." "For who? For yourself." Claire stepped closer. "You wanted everyone in that room to believe leaving me proved you had become important." Grant said nothing. She lowered her voice. "Dante did not humiliate you. He interrupted you while you were humiliating yourself." Security approached. Grant looked past Claire. "This is not over. It ended 3 years ago." The guard escorted him outside. Claire returned upstairs with her pulse steady. At 10, Ethan arrived with Dante. They entered Rebecca's conference room together. Dante wore a charcoal suit, no coat, no visible weapon. Marco waited outside. Claire remained standing. "You sent flowers. I considered sending an apology." "Flowers are not an apology." "No." "Then what are they?" "A request for a conversation. You could have called. You might not have answered. That possibility frightened you, no? It should." Ethan cleared his throat. "I can leave." "No," Claire said. "You can explain why you are here." Ethan sat at the end of the table. Dante placed a folder in front of Claire. "The photographs have created several problems." Claire opened it. Printed articles and screen captures filled the first pages. One, Dante said, "People in the business community believe you have influence over me." "I do not. They do not know that. Correct them. A direct denial would make it appear that I used you for entertainment, then rejected you publicly." "You did use me." "Yes." The admission stole some of her anger. Dante continued. 2, Grant's firm is connected to a waterfront acquisition involving my company. I know. 3, the photographer was paid by an intermediary, who we are still identifying him. Claire turned another page. A grainy photograph showed the coffee shop from across the street. Was he working for Grant? I do not believe so. Then for whom someone interested in creating the appearance that you matter to me. Claire closed the folder. "And do I?" The room became very quiet. Dante looked at her. "Yes." Ethan looked down at the table. Claire's heartbeat changed, but she kept her voice controlled. "You met me yesterday. That does not make the answer false." She forced herself to look away. "What are you proposing?" Dante placed a single document on the table. "For 6 weeks we allow the public story to continue." Claire read the heading. "Personal Security and Public Representation Agreement." She looked up. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend. In public. And in private, you owe me nothing." Why 6 weeks? Long enough for the waterfront negotiations to conclude. Long enough for interest to fade gradually. Ethan added, "An abrupt denial could create more attention." Claire read the first page. Dante would provide transportation security and legal protection. She would attend selected public events and refuse comment on their private life. A compensation clause appeared near the bottom. Claire pushed the document away. "No." Dante did not react. Ethan looked between them. "Claire, perhaps you should read the full agreement." "I do not need to. You would be protected. I am not accepting money to perform affection for a man I met yesterday." "The payment compensates you for inconvenience," Dante said. "The inconvenience is your fault." "Yes." "Then remove it." Dante looked at Ethan. "Remove the payment." Ethan opened his laptop. Claire sat down. "If this happens, I write the terms." Dante pulled out the chair across from her. "Go ahead." Claire took a blank sheet of paper. "First, you do not lie to me about threats involving my safety. Agreed. Second, you do not interfere with my job. Agreed. Or my bar exam." Dante's gaze sharpened. "You registered?" "Yes." "Good." Claire ignored the approval. "Third, you do not touch me without permission." His eyes held hers. "Agreed." "Fourth, you do not answer questions for me unless we discuss it first." "Agreed." "Fifth, I can end this arrangement at any time." Dante was silent. Claire set down the pen. "That term is not negotiable. If leaving creates immediate danger, I need time to protect you. How much? 48 hours, 24, 36, 24. A faint smile touched his mouth. 24, Claire added the condition. No gifts intended to change my decision. Flowers. Flowers are acceptable if they do not arrive with contracts. I will remember. Ethan looked at the page. Anything else? Claire looked at Dante. No kissing without a direct question. Dante leaned back. Your previous rule covered that. I want this one written separately. Why? Because you are dangerously skilled at interpreting vague permission. Ethan coughed into his hand. Dante did not look away from Claire. Write it separately. They signed the revised agreement at noon. Their first public appearance took place 3 nights later at a charity gala inside the Art Institute. Claire arrived in a navy dress borrowed from Megan. She refused the jewelry Dante sent and wore her grandmother's ring instead. Dante waited at the entrance. When he saw her, his gaze moved slowly from her face to the hem of the dress, then back again. Claire stopped beside him. You are staring. I am observing. You already admitted that habit is irritating. I did not agree to stop. Photographers called Dante's name. He offered Claire his hand. He did not touch her until she placed her fingers in his. Inside, people watched them with open curiosity. A reporter asked how long they had known each other. Claire smiled, long enough to know he dislikes answering personal questions. Dante looked at her. The reporter laughed and moved on. Near the main gallery, a businessman approached them. He greeted Dante, then glanced at Claire. So, this is the mystery woman. This is Claire Bennett, Dante said. The man smiled at her. Enjoy the attention while it lasts. Dante has always preferred temporary arrangements. Claire saw Dante's expression cool. Before he could speak, she answered, Temporary things can still have lasting consequences. The man raised an eyebrow, such as poor judgment. Dante looked down, hiding a smile. The businessman left. Claire leaned closer. You were about to threaten him. I was going to correct him. With words. Eventually. They moved through the gallery together. For almost an hour, the arrangement felt manageable. Then Claire heard 2 men speaking near a marble staircase. Moretti should have learned from his father. His father trusted the harbor too. The harbor did not kill Antonio. No, Salerno did. Claire stopped. The men noticed her and walked away. She turned toward Dante. He was speaking with a museum trustee across the room. Claire waited until they were alone on a balcony overlooking Michigan Avenue. Who is Salerno? Dante's face became still. Where did you hear that name? 2 men were discussing your father. Dante looked through the glass doors. Tell me. He rested both hands on the stone railing. My family controls more than Moretti Maritime. Claire waited. Illegal gambling, debt collection, several unions along the waterfront. The city moved below them. Claire felt the night tilt. You run a criminal organization, yes. Are you the head of it? Yes. She searched his face for shame. There was none. Only certainty. Have you killed anyone? Dante did not answer immediately. That is not a no, Claire said. No. Have you? Yes. The word entered the cold air between them. Claire stepped back. Dante did not follow. Why? Because someone was trying to kill my brother. That does not make this simple. I did not say it did. Do the police know what you are? They know what they can prove. Claire looked away. You should have told me before I signed anything. You knew I was not only a businessman. I did not know you were the head of a Mafia family. You would not have signed. That was my decision to make. Yes. His agreement angered her more than a defense would have. Why did you help me? Dante stared out at the traffic below. When I was 15, my mother attended a dinner with my father's associates. One of them mocked her accent. Another asked whether my father had married her because beautiful women did not need intelligence. Claire said nothing. No one stopped them. Dante continued. My father laughed because challenging the men would have created conflict. I sat across from her and said nothing. His hands tightened on the railing. I remember the way she looked at the table. I remember deciding I would never become the kind of man who watched cruelty and called it peace. Claire looked at him. You were a child. I was old enough to know she was alone. That is why you noticed me. Yes. The answer did not erase what he was. It did not erase what he had done. but it made the man beside her more complicated than the name everyone feared. Dante stepped closer. He stopped before touching her. "May I kiss you?" Claire felt the question deep inside her. The first kiss had been heat and shock. This one would be a choice. She looked at his mouth. Then she met his eyes. "Not tonight." Dante nodded. "All right. No pressure, no wounded pride, no attempt to make her explain." The refusal rested safely between them. A moment later, Marco appeared at the balcony door carrying an envelope. "Dante." Something in his voice changed the air. Dante opened the envelope. Inside was the photograph from the restaurant. A red circle had been drawn around Claire's face. 6 words were written across the back. "Every king has something he fears losing." Dante folded the photograph once. Claire held out her hand. "You promised not to lie about threats." He gave it to her. She read the message twice. "The arrangement is over," Dante said. Claire looked up. "You do not get to end it for me." Dante stood motionless beneath the balcony lights. Beyond the glass, music drifted through the museum galleries. Guests laughed beneath marble arches, unaware that a photograph marked in red had just changed the meaning of the evening. Claire held the image between 2 fingers. "You said I could leave whenever I chose," she continued. "You did not say you could remove me the moment you became afraid. This is not fear. Then what is it, experience?" Dante's voice was quiet, but the force behind it was unmistakable. "The person who sent that message knows my family. He knows how we operate. He knows that men make mistakes when something personal is placed in danger." Claire looked at the red circle around her face. "And sending me away proves the threat worked. It removes you from the conflict." "No. It tells them I matter enough to move." Dante's jaw tightened. "You already matter enough." The admission hung between them. Claire felt it, but she refused to let it change the argument. "You keep talking as though I am a package you can move somewhere safer. I am trying to keep you alive. Then tell me everything. I told you what my family is. You told me the title." "You did not tell me who would send this." Dante looked at Marco. Marco remained near the balcony door, watching the gallery behind them. "Victor Salerno," Dante said at last. "He controls gambling operations on the west side and several crews near the freight yards. He has wanted access to our terminals for years. The same Salerno those men connected to your father's death." "Yes. Did he kill him? I believe he ordered it." Claire looked again at the photograph. "What does Grant have to do with this?" Dante's eyes narrowed. "Why do you think Grant is involved? His firm wants property near your terminals. He approached you for investment. He was at the dinner where this photograph was taken. Grant is arrogant. That does not make him part of Salerno's organization. No, but arrogance makes people useful to men who know how to flatter them." Dante studied her. Claire handed the photograph back. "I am not leaving until I understand how the pieces connect." "You are not investigating Salerno. That was not a request." His expression hardened. "Claire, do not use my name like an order." Marco looked away, though Claire suspected it was to hide a reaction. Dante lowered his voice. "If Salerno believes you are important to me, he will not care whether this relationship began as an arrangement. Then distancing myself now will not erase what he believes. It may reduce your value." Claire stepped closer. "Grant controlled me by making me feel too small to choose. You are trying to control me by deciding your fear is more important than my judgment." Something changed in Dante's face. The anger remained, but beneath it came recognition. Claire continued. "You do not have to like my decision. You do have to respect that it is mine." For several seconds, Dante said nothing. Then he looked at Marco. "Double her security." Claire opened her mouth. Dante raised one hand. Discreetly. "No one enters her office. No one speaks to her family. She receives every report involving her name." Claire considered it. "And the agreement remains in place, yes, until I end it." "Yes." Dante's eyes held hers. "But if Salerno moves against you, I will act. I would expect you to. You may not like what that means. I already dislike most things about this situation." A faint shadow of a smile touched his mouth. Marco stepped forward. "We should leave." Dante nodded. As they returned to the gala, his hand hovered near Claire's back without touching her. This time she noticed the restraint. The next morning, Claire arrived at Lawson and Pierce before 7. She carried coffee, 2 legal pads, and a growing suspicion that the waterfront deal contained more than Grant had admitted. Rebecca found her inside a conference room surrounded by property records. You are either very dedicated or avoiding your apartment. Both. Rebecca closed the door. What are you researching? Public filings connected to Moretti Maritime. That client has attorneys assigned to the acquisition. I am not working for Dante. Rebecca sat across from her. That sentence does not reassure me. Claire turned the laptop around. Grant's firm had created 3 holding companies during the previous year. Each had submitted offers for warehouses near the Calumet River. The purchase prices were too high for the condition of the buildings, and none of the companies had a history of industrial development. Rebecca scanned the documents. Shell companies. That is what I thought. Who owns them? The records lead to another investment group. That group is represented by an attorney who has defended companies connected to Victor Salerno. Rebecca looked up. Salerno, you know the name. I know enough to tell you this is not research you should conduct alone. Claire slid another page across the table. There is more. One warehouse sat beside a private access road leading directly to a Moretti shipping terminal. If Grant's firm acquired it, the owner could monitor every truck entering and leaving the property. Rebecca leaned back. This is not a normal real estate transaction. No. Have you told Dante? Not yet. Why? Because I need to know whether Grant understands what he is doing. Rebecca removed her glasses. You are considering confronting him. I'm considering asking questions. Claire, men who work with criminal organizations rarely answer questions because someone asks politely. Grant thinks he is smarter than everyone around him. That makes him easier to read. It also makes him dangerous when embarrassed. Claire closed the file. He has spent 3 years believing I would never challenge him. I would like to use that. Rebecca watched her for a long moment. Take security. Claire did not ask how Rebecca knew she had it. By noon, Claire stood in the marble lobby of Grant's office tower. 2 of Dante's men waited across the street. They wore business coats and looked like men waiting for lunch, but Claire had learned to notice how often their eyes moved. Grant came out of the elevator with his phone in his hand. His surprise became irritation. What are you doing here? I need 5 minutes. You had security throw me out yesterday. You were shouting in my workplace. You embarrassed me in front of my fiancée. Claire almost admired his ability to place himself at the center of every injury. Did you hire someone to investigate me? Grant's expression changed, only for an instant. It was enough. Claire lowered her voice. Someone used credentials connected to your firm to access my employment profile and apartment records. I do not know what you are talking about. You always look to the left when you lie. His gaze snapped back to hers. You think you know me because we dated years ago. I know you hate being caught unprepared. Grant glanced around the lobby. Keep your voice down. So you did investigate me. I wanted to know whether you were telling the truth. About what Moretti? Claire stared at him. You believed I hired Chicago's most feared crime boss to make you jealous. I believed the relationship was fake. It was none of your business. You made it my business when you humiliated me. No. You humiliated yourself. You are simply angry that people noticed. Grant stepped closer. Dante Moretti is using you. Perhaps. Her answer unsettled him. Claire continued. But that still does not explain why your firm is purchasing warehouses for Victor Salerno. Color drained from Grant's face. I do not know that name. You looked left again. He caught her arm. The movement was quick and instinctive. One of Dante's men entered the lobby immediately. Claire pulled free before he reached them. Do not touch me. Grant looked toward the approaching guard and released her completely. You have no idea what you are interfering with. Then explain it. It is a property deal. Why does a property deal need shell companies? His mouth tightened. Claire saw the truth forming before he spoke. Grant did not know everything, but he knew enough to understand the deal was not clean. Salerno approached one of our partners, he said. He wanted access to the waterfront, that is all. Access for what I did not ask, because you did not care, because the returns were excellent. Claire felt something inside her become very still. You gave him information about Dante. Public information. You investigated me. That was Sloane's idea. A woman's voice came from behind him. No, it was not. Sloane Kensington stood near the elevators. She wore a cream coat and held a leather folder against her chest. Her expression was composed, but her eyes were fixed on Grant. Grant turned. Sloan, you told me your firm needed to verify Claire's employment because she might be part of a fraud. You misunderstood. I heard you ask Daniel to find her address. Grant glanced at Claire. Sloan, this is not the place. Claire recognized the tone, soft enough to sound controlled, sharp enough to warn. Sloan recognized it too. You said Claire was obsessed with you, she said. You said she had spent 3 years waiting for a chance to embarrass us. Grant's face hardened. She is standing here accusing me of working with criminals. Are you? The question came quietly. Grant looked at Sloan as though she had betrayed him simply by asking. You do not understand the transaction. Sloan's fingers tightened around the folder. Then explain it. This is business. And I would not understand. I did not say that. You did not need to. For one brief moment, Claire saw herself 3 years earlier. She saw the confusion that came when an insult was delivered gently enough to make resistance feel unreasonable. Sloan looked at Claire. I am sorry I laughed at the dinner. Grant stared at her. Sloan. She did not look at him. I believed what he told me about you. Claire felt no sudden affection for her. The apology did not erase the laughter or the judgment, but it was honest. Thank you, Claire said. Sloan gave a small nod. Then she looked at Grant. We need to talk. Grant's attention remained on Claire. This is your fault, Claire almost answered. Sloan did it first. No, this is yours. Claire left them in the lobby. Outside, one of Dante's men opened the car door. She did not get in. Take me to Moretti Maritime. Dante was waiting when she entered his office on the top floor of the company's riverfront headquarters. The room was dark wood glass and cold afternoon light. Shipping maps covered one wall. Beyond the windows, cranes moved above the water. Dante stood behind his desk. You met Grant. It was not a question. You received a report. You were told not to investigate Salerno. I did not agree. You met a man connected to him without informing me. Grant is not one of Salerno's soldiers. He does not need to be dangerous on purpose. Claire placed the property records on Dante's desk. 3 shell companies are buying warehouses beside your terminal. Grant admitted Salerno approached his firm. Dante did not look at the papers. I already knew about the companies. Claire stared at him. You knew, yes, and you did not tell me you did not need that information. She laughed once. The sound echoed through the office. You promised not to hide threats involving me. The warehouses were not about you until the photograph appeared. Grant used his firm to access my address. Dante's face changed. The air in the office seemed to contract. Did he admit that he blamed Sloan? Did he touch you? Claire looked at him. How did you know Dante moved around the desk? Answer me. He grabbed my arm. I pulled away. Dante reached for his phone. Claire stepped in front of him. No, he placed his hands on you and I handled it. That does not remove the consequence. You are not hurting him. Move. No. Dante's voice dropped. Claire, you do not get to punish every man who angers you. He did not anger me. The control in his face broke for 1 second. He put you at risk. So did you. The words stopped him. Claire continued. You kissed me in front of a room full of people because you believed your power could protect me. Now every enemy you have knows my face. I know. You cannot fix that by locking me somewhere. I am not locking you anywhere. You sent men to follow me, to keep you alive. You keep calling control protection. Dante's hands closed at his sides. You do not understand what Salerno does to people. Then explain it. He took my father's driver and left him inside a burned car. He ordered a dock worker beaten because the man refused to falsify a shipment record. He sent my brother a photograph of his daughter leaving school. Claire's anger faltered. Dante stepped closer. When Salerno threatens someone, I do not debate whether he might be serious. His voice had become rough. I imagined every way I could fail to reach them in time. Claire saw it then. Not authority, terror. Dante had built his life around control because control was the only defense he trusted against loss. Her voice softened. I believe you are afraid for me. Dante looked away. That does not give you ownership of my choices. I know. Do you? His eyes returned to hers. I am trying. The honesty opened something between them. Claire stepped closer. The office was silent except for the low hum of the city beyond the glass. Dante looked at her mouth. He did not move. Claire touched the front of his shirt. "This time ask." His breathing changed. "May I kiss you, yes?" Dante cupped her face with both hands. The kiss was nothing like the one in the restaurant. There was no audience, no performance, no enemy to silence. He kissed her slowly as though force was the easiest thing in the world and restraint was the one that cost him. Claire gripped his shoulders. Dante drew her closer, then stopped before the moment could become something neither of them was ready to name. He rested his forehead against hers. "The arrangement is becoming a problem," Claire whispered. "It stopped being an arrangement for me days ago." Her heart struck hard against her ribs. Before she could answer, Marco entered without knocking. Dante turned instantly. "What?" "We found the connection to the photographer. Salerno paid him through one of Grant's holding companies." Claire closed her eyes. Grant might not have known about the photograph, but his ambition had opened the door. Dante looked at Marco. "Move Claire to the Lake Forest house." "No," Claire said. Both men looked at her. "I have bar preparation tonight." Dante's expression hardened. "You are not attending. I am. Salerno knows your routine, then change the route. Do not change my life." Dante stared at her. Claire held his gaze. Finally, he looked at Marco. 4 men, 2 inside the building. Claire started to object. Dante raised one hand. "That is my limit." She accepted. At 9 that evening, Claire left her bar preparation class through a side entrance. Cold wind moved between the buildings. Her security car waited at the curb. One of Dante's men opened the rear door. A second man touched his earpiece. His face changed. "What happened?" Claire asked. "There has been an incident at the Moretti residence." "What kind?" He did not answer. Both guards looked toward the street. A black van turned the corner. Too fast. Claire stepped back. The security car exploded with the sound of shattered glass as another vehicle struck it from behind. One guard fell. The other reached beneath his coat. 2 men emerged from the van. Claire ran toward the building. A hand caught her coat. She twisted, drove her elbow backward, and heard someone curse. Another man grabbed her around the waist. Claire kicked against the pavement, but a cloth pressed over her mouth. The chemical smell filled her nose. The last thing she saw was one of her bar exam cards sliding from her bag into the gutter. She woke on the floor of a moving vehicle. Her wrists were bound in front of her. A man sat across from her holding a pistol loosely against his knee. Another drove. Claire kept her eyes half closed. "You gave the guards the false call," she heard the driver ask. "Moretti's people hear his family is in danger. They stop thinking." Claire forced herself to breathe slowly. The van turned left, then crossed metal tracks. A freight train sounded nearby. She listened to every word. "Salerno wants her at Warehouse 18. Grant said she would be alone after class." Grant. The name landed like ice. Claire moved one hand toward her open bag. Flashcards spilled across the floor. The guard kicked them aside. What are these law school garbage? He opened the rear vent to throw them out. Claire watched the cards scatter onto the road one by one. A trail. Warehouse 18 stood near the waterfront properties she had studied that morning. When the van stopped, the men dragged her inside a building that smelled of oil rust and river water. Victor Salerno waited near a metal desk. He was older than Dante, with silver hair and a carefully tailored coat. "You are less frightened than I expected," he said. Claire looked at the emergency exit behind him. A forklift key hung beside the loading records. "I have had a difficult week." Salerno smiled. "I understand why Moretti likes you. He barely knows me. That has never stopped men like us from deciding what belongs to them. I do not belong to him." No, Salerno lifted his phone. Then he should have no reason to surrender the terminal. Claire lowered her eyes. She let her breathing become uneven. She let her shoulders shake. Men underestimated fear in women because they mistook performance for weakness. Salerno stepped closer. "Call him." Claire looked at the guard beside her. "I cannot feel my hands." The guard laughed. She moved suddenly. Claire drove the metal edge of a clipboard into his throat. He stumbled. She seized the fire alarm and pulled. Bells screamed through the warehouse. Water burst from the ceiling. Salerno shouted. Claire grabbed the forklift key and ran. A bullet struck the wall behind her. She climbed into the machine, turned the ignition, and drove the forks into a stack of wooden crates. The crates crashed across the central aisle. Men scattered. Claire reversed, struck another pallet, and blocked the corridor leading toward the emergency exit. Smoke rose from an electrical panel as water poured over it. She jumped from the forklift and ran. A hand caught the back of her dress. Claire turned and drove the key into the man's cheek. He released her with a scream. She reached the emergency door and threw herself into the rain. Black vehicles tore through the gate. Dante stepped from the first car before it had fully stopped. Gunfire erupted inside the warehouse. Claire found a discarded phone near the loading dock and called emergency services. She gave the address, the number of armed men, and the location of the injured guard. Then she saw Dante crossing the yard toward her. Rain soaked his hair and shirt. Blood marked one cuff. He stopped several feet away. His eyes moved over her torn dress-bound wrists and bleeding arm. For the first time since Claire had met him, Dante Moretti looked completely afraid. He raised his hand slightly as though approaching something wounded. Claire crossed the distance herself. She pressed her face against his chest. Dante wrapped his arms around her. His body shook once. Only once. "I was not waiting for you to save me," Claire whispered. His hand closed gently around the back of her head. "I know." He held her beneath the cold rain while sirens rose beyond the warehouses. Then his voice broke against her hair. "I came because I could not survive being too late." Claire felt the words against her hair. For several seconds, the rain, the sirens, and the shouting inside the warehouse seemed to disappear. Dante held her with one hand at the back of her head and the other around her waist as though he could shield her from everything that had already happened. Claire closed her eyes. His heart struck hard beneath her cheek. He was alive. She was alive. That was enough for one breath, then another. A paramedic approached them. "Ma'am, I need to examine you." Dante did not release her immediately. Claire lifted her head. His face was pale beneath the rain. A thin line of blood ran across his knuckles. "I am all right," she said. "No, you are not." His voice was rough. Claire touched his wrist. "Neither are you." The paramedic stepped closer. "We need to move away from the building." Dante looked toward the warehouse. Gunshots had stopped. Men in dark coats were being forced onto the ground near the loading entrance. Police vehicles arrived through the gate, their lights staining the wet pavement red and blue. Marco emerged from the building with blood on his collar. "Salerno is alive," he said. "2 of his men surrendered. 3 are injured." Dante's expression became cold. Grant Marco looked at Claire before answering. "He was found in a car near the south entrance." Claire went still. "He was here. He claims he did not know Salerno intended to take you." Dante turned toward the warehouse. Claire caught his hand. "No." He looked down at her fingers around his wrist. "You do not know what I was going to do." "Yes, I do." Dante's eyes darkened. "He gave them your schedule, and he will answer for it. He put you in that van, then let the evidence destroy him." The muscles in Dante's jaw tightened. "That may not be enough. It has to be." Claire stepped closer. "If you kill him, this night becomes about what you did, not what he did." Dante looked toward the police lights. "He does not deserve your mercy. This is not mercy." Her voice remained steady. "It is consequence. He will lose his job, his reputation, his freedom if the evidence supports it. He will live long enough to understand exactly how much his ambition cost him." Dante's gaze returned to her. "And if the law fails, then we face that when it happens." We, Claire, did not look away. Yes, the single word changed something in his face, not relief, something quieter, something he did not trust enough to name. The paramedic touched Claire's arm. "Please." Claire allowed herself to be led toward the ambulance. Dante walked beside her. He did not touch her again until she reached for his hand. At the hospital, Claire sat beneath a white blanket while a doctor examined the cut on her arm. She had bruising around both wrists, a shallow wound near her shoulder, and a headache from the chemical used in the van. Nothing was broken. Dante stood near the window. He had refused treatment twice until Claire ordered a nurse to clean the cut across his hand. The nurse glanced between them. "You 2 married?" "No," Claire said. "Not yet," Dante answered. Claire looked at him. The nurse smiled as though she had heard only what she wanted. When they were alone again, Claire said, "That joke is becoming dangerous." Dante looked down at the bandage around his hand. "I was not joking." Her heartbeat changed. "This is not the time." "No." He moved closer. but there may never be a perfect time to tell you that I have stopped imagining a life in which you are temporary." Claire looked at him. The fluorescent lights made the exhaustion in his face impossible to hide. "Dante, we have known each other for less than 2 weeks. I know. You run a criminal organization. I know. You make decisions for people and call it protection. I am learning not to. You threatened to move me into your house after one photograph. That was reasonable. It was not. It was slightly unreasonable." Claire almost smiled. Then her expression softened. "You cannot decide that surviving one terrible night means we belong together. I am not deciding for you." He stepped closer, but stopped beyond her reach. "I am telling you what I want. You decide what it means." Claire searched his face. For the first time, Dante was not using power, fear, or certainty to control the moment. He was simply standing before her with something unguarded in his eyes. "I do not know what it means yet," she said. Dante nodded. "That is an answer. It is not the one you want. It is the one you chose." The doctor returned with discharge papers. Dante drove Claire to the Lake Forest estate before sunrise. She had resisted until Megan called from outside her apartment and reported 3 reporters waiting near the entrance. The hospital had already released her name to the police report, and photographs of the warehouse filled the morning news. The Moretti estate stood behind stone walls and iron gates north of the city. Claire expected something grand and cold. The house was large, but the lights were warm. Family photographs lined the entrance hall. A faded picture showed Dante at 12 years old with a missing front tooth standing beside a younger boy on a fishing dock. Claire stopped in front of it. Dante followed her gaze. "My brother Nico. You smiled more then. I had fewer responsibilities and fewer armed employees. Much fewer." An older woman came down the staircase wearing a gray robe. She crossed the hall quickly and held Dante's face between both hands. "You are hurt. I am fine, Zia." The woman looked at Claire. Her concern deepened. "You are the girl from the photograph." Claire was too tired to object to the word girl. "Yes." The woman took her hands gently. "I am Teresa, Dante's aunt. You will eat before you sleep. I am not hungry. That is what injured people always say." Dante leaned closer to Claire. "There is no winning this argument." "I heard that," Teresa said. For the first time since the warehouse, Claire laughed. The sound surprised her. Teresa fed them soup at the kitchen table while Marco gave Dante a report from the doorway. Victor Salerno was in police custody. The guards from the van had survived. One had already agreed to cooperate. Grant remained at the station. Dante listened without interrupting. Claire watched his face harden when Marco mentioned Grant. She placed her spoon down. "You promised." Dante looked at her. "I have done nothing. Keep doing that." Teresa looked between them. "You have known my nephew for how long?" 11 days, Claire said. Teresa nodded thoughtfully. "And you already give him orders? I make requests." Dante lifted an eyebrow. Teresa smiled. "Of course." Claire slept for 3 hours in a guest room overlooking the lake. When she woke, sunlight had replaced the rain. Her body ached. For several minutes she did not remember where she was. Then she saw the bruises around her wrists. The warehouse returned in fragments. The van, the gun, the sprinkler water pouring through smoke. Dante crossing the yard with terror on his face. Claire sat up slowly. A folded sweater and clean trousers rested on a chair. Megan had sent them with Ethan. Her phone held more than 50 messages. Rebecca had written only one. "Your job is safe. Take the time you need." Sloan had sent a message too. "I heard what happened. Grant told me enough before the police arrived. I have documents you may need." Claire read it twice. Then she called. Sloan answered immediately. "Are you all right? I will be. I am sorry. You did not put me in the van. I introduced Grant to one of the partners involved in the warehouse deal." "Did you know about Salerno?" Numbers Sloan's voice shook. "But I knew Grant was hiding something. I did not ask because the deal was making him important. I liked what that did for us." Claire looked through the window at the gray water beyond the trees. "What documents do you have?" "Emails, meeting schedules, copies of transfers from one of the holding companies. Grant left his laptop at my apartment. Do not open anything else. I already sent copies to my attorney." "Good. Claire." "Yes, I ended the engagement." Claire closed her eyes. Because of this, because when I asked whether he knew you would be taken, he was more afraid of losing his job than of what happened to you. The words carried no drama, only exhaustion. I thought he was ambitious, Sloane said. I did not understand that he needed other people to become smaller so he could feel successful. Claire knew that realization. She had lived inside it for years. I am sorry, she said, so am I. Sloane paused. I laughed at you because I trusted his version of you more than the woman standing in front of me. I cannot change that, no, but I can tell the truth now. Yes. After the call, Claire found Dante in a study overlooking the lake. He stood before a wall of shipping maps while Marco and Ethan sat at a long table. Documents covered the surface. Dante looked at the bruises on her wrists before meeting her eyes. You should be resting. I have rested. 3 hours. That is nearly a full night during bar preparation. Ethan closed one of the folders. Sloane's attorney contacted me. She has Grant's emails. We know. Claire looked at Dante. Why are you here instead of at the police station? Because you asked me not to go. She held his gaze. Thank you. The words seemed to affect him more than she expected. Ethan slid a document toward her. Salerno used Grant's holding companies to pay the photographer, rent the warehouse, and transfer money to 2 dock supervisors. Did Grant authorize the payments? Some of them. Does he claim he did not know where the money went? Yes. Claire scanned the signatures. He knew the accounts were false. That may be enough for fraud and conspiracy, Ethan said. The kidnapping charge depends on what he understood when he gave them your schedule. Marco placed a phone on the table. One of the men in the van recorded a conversation with Salerno for insurance. Claire pressed play. Salerno's voice filled the room. Holloway says she leaves class at 9. He wants her frightened, not damaged. After Moretti gives us the terminal, Holloway gets his promotion. Claire stopped the recording. No one spoke. Dante stood perfectly still. Claire felt nothing at first. Then came a deep, quiet grief. Grant had known. Perhaps not the full plan. Perhaps not the violence, but he had wanted her frightened. He had wanted control over her one final time. Claire pushed the phone away. I want to speak to the prosecutor. Ethan nodded. I will arrange it. Dante said, You do not have to do this today. Yes, I do. Claire, I spent years explaining his behavior until it became my responsibility. I am not doing that again. Her voice trembled, but she continued. I will tell them everything. Dante did not argue. For the next 6 hours, Claire gave statements to police and federal investigators. She described the restaurant the photographer grants access to her records, the van, the warehouse, and Salerno's demands. Sloane delivered the laptop and financial records through her attorney. By evening, Grant was charged with conspiracy, unlawful access to private information, and involvement in the kidnapping plan. His attorneys immediately argued that Salerno had deceived him. The investigation into the waterfront purchases widened. Moretti Maritime became part of it. Dante handed over selected records through Ethan and a team of criminal defense attorneys. Claire watched him make the decision from the far end of the study. Those files could expose your family, she said later. Some of them. Why give them up? Because Salerno used my ports, my enemies, and my name to build this plan. That is not the whole reason. Dante looked at her. No. He poured 2 glasses of water. Claire accepted one. I cannot ask you to trust me while protecting every secret that made your life dangerous. The statement sounded simple. Claire understood the cost beneath it. What happens to the organization? It changes. Men like Marco will accept that Marco understands survival, and the others, they will decide whether they prefer change or retirement. Claire studied him. Is retirement a threat? Not always. Dante. His mouth moved slightly. I am trying to become less alarming. You need more practice. I have time. The following weeks moved slowly. Claire returned to her apartment after reporters lost interest in the building. Dante's security remained, but the men kept their distance. They did not follow her into coffee shops or stand outside the law office. Dante asked before making changes. Not every time, but more often. Claire returned to work. Her first morning back, Rebecca placed a fresh stack of bar preparation materials on her desk. You missed 4 days, I know. You will make them up, I know. Rebecca looked at the fading bruise on Claire's arm. You do not have to prove resilience by pretending you are unaffected. Claire lowered her eyes. I am affected. Good. Claire looked up. Rebecca sat across from her. People survive something terrible and immediately start performing strength for everyone around them. Do not turn survival into another job. Claire breathed slowly. I keep hearing the fire alarm, then hear it. I wake up reaching for the forklift key, then remind yourself where you are. Claire looked toward the city. What if it does not stop? It changes. Rebecca's voice softened. Most pain does not disappear. It becomes something you can carry without letting it choose your direction. Claire nodded. That night, Dante arrived at her apartment with dinner from a small Italian restaurant. He stood outside until she opened the door. You could have called. I did. Claire checked her phone. 3 missed calls. I was studying. I assumed. He lifted the paper bag. Teresa believes you are not eating. Teresa has known me for one breakfast. She forms strong opinions. Claire let him inside. They ate at her small kitchen table among case books and practice questions. Dante did not discuss Salerno unless she asked. He did not mention Grant at all. After dinner, Claire returned to a constitutional law problem. Dante picked up one of her flashcards. What is strict scrutiny? Claire looked at him. You do not know I employ attorneys. That does not answer the question. I know enough not to answer legal questions without one present. She smiled. Strict scrutiny is the highest level of judicial review. Dante leaned back. Ask me again. She did. He answered incorrectly. Claire corrected him. By midnight, he had memorized 14 cards. At 12:15, Claire found him asleep on the couch with a book open against his chest. She stood in the doorway and watched him. This man commanded warehouses, ships, armed crews, and frightened boardrooms. Yet he had spent the evening learning constitutional law because she needed someone to ask questions. Claire covered him with a blanket. Dante opened his eyes. I was not asleep. You were breathing like a damaged engine. That was concentration. Go back to sleep. He caught her wrist gently. His thumb rested beneath the fading bruise. May I stay? Claire looked at his hand, then at his face. Yes. He released her wrist before she had to ask. Grant requested to see Claire 3 weeks after the warehouse. She refused twice. On the third request, his attorney included a handwritten note. I need you to understand. Claire stared at the sentence. For years, she had believed understanding Grant would free her from what he had done. Now she knew that understanding could become a cage if it required her to keep listening. Still, she agreed to one meeting in a monitored room at the county detention center. Dante did not approve. He said so once. Then he drove her there and waited outside. Grant entered wearing a gray uniform. Without the tailored suit and silver watch, he looked younger, smaller. Claire felt no satisfaction. He sat across from her. Thank you for coming. You have 10 minutes. Grant looked toward the camera in the corner. Salerno lied to me. You gave him my schedule. He said his men would scare you. He said Dante would abandon the waterfront deal once he understood you could become a liability. You wanted me frightened. Grant looked down. I wanted you to see what Moretti was. No, you wanted me to come back to the version of myself you understood. That is not true. You could not accept that I had a life beyond you. You kissed him in front of me. Claire almost laughed. He kissed me because you were humiliating me. You let him. Yes. The answer struck him harder than any accusation. Grant looked at her. I loved you. You loved being needed. I supported you. You tolerated my goals until they required respect. His eyes filled with anger. You think Moretti respects you? He is a murderer. Claire did not look away. I know what Dante is, and you choose him. This is not a competition between you and Dante. Grant leaned forward. He will destroy you. Perhaps. The calm in her voice unsettled him. But he has never asked me to believe he is harmless. You spent years hurting me while pretending it was love. Grant sat back. Claire continued. You lied about my job. You mocked my ambitions. You gave a criminal my address because my independence embarrassed you. I made a mistake. No. Her voice remained quiet. You made a series of choices. The mistake was believing there would be no consequence. Grant stared at her through the glass. Are you testifying against me? Yes. His face hardened. After everything I did for you, Claire stood. You taught me what it feels like to disappear inside someone else's expectations. She lifted her bag. I finally learned to stop. Grant called her name as she walked toward the door. Claire did not turn. Outside, Dante waited beside the car. He studied her face. Did he apologize? He explained. That is usually what men do when apology requires responsibility. Claire looked at him. You sound experienced. I have made many explanations, and apologies fewer. You should work on that. Dante opened the car door. I have time. The morning of the bar exam arrived cold and clear. Claire woke before her alarm. For several minutes she lay in darkness, listening to the city beyond her window. Her notes were stacked beside the bed. Her identification card rested on top. Fear moved through her quietly. Not the fear of failure. The older fear. Grant's voice telling her some people were better at supporting the person in charge. Claire sat up. She looked at her reflection in the dark window. Seeing him did not change who I was. The words felt different now. She dressed, gathered her materials, and walked downstairs. Dante waited beside a black sedan with 2 cups of coffee. No flowers, no driver holding the door, no dramatic declaration. He handed her 1 cup. Did you sleep number good? Claire stared at him. Good. If you fail, we can blame exhaustion. She laughed. The sound broke the tension. He drove her to the testing center himself. Outside, hundreds of candidates moved toward the entrance carrying transparent bags and identification cards. Dante parked across the street. Claire reached for the door. He did not stop her. Claire. She turned. Dante held out one of her oldest flashcards. The corners were bent. A faint brown stain marked one side. She recognized it. The card she had dropped near the van. Marco found it in the street. Claire took it. The question on the front concerned personal jurisdiction. On the back beneath her handwritten answer, Dante had written 1 sentence. No one decides the limits of your life except you. Claire looked at him. That sounds dangerously close to encouragement. I have been practicing. She slipped the card into her pocket. Dante leaned closer but did not touch her. May I kiss you? Claire smiled. After the exam. He nodded. I will be here. The test lasted 2 days. Claire emerged on the second evening with aching shoulders, dry eyes, and no idea whether she had passed. Dante waited in the same place. He held another cup of coffee. Claire crossed the street. How do you feel, he asked. Like every fact I ever learned has left my body. Is that good? I will tell you in several months. He gave her the coffee. Claire looked at him. You waited. I said I would. She touched his coat. You asked for a kiss. I did. Claire rose onto her toes and kissed him beneath the pale Chicago sky. There were no photographers, no enemies, no one to convince. Dante touched her waist only after she drew him closer. Several weeks later, Victor Salerno accepted a federal plea agreement after 3 members of his organization testified against him. The evidence from the warehouse connected him to kidnapping, extortion, fraud, and the murder of 2 dock workers. Grant's firm terminated him. Sloane's testimony and financial records became central to the prosecution. She returned her engagement ring and moved out of the apartment they had planned to share. Grant eventually pleaded guilty to conspiracy and unlawful access to private information. His sentence would be decided later. Dante cooperated through his attorneys. The investigation forced Moretti Maritime to separate from several businesses tied to illegal gambling and debt collection. Some members of the family resisted. One night, Claire arrived at the Lake Forest estate and found Dante alone in the study. A broken glass lay near the fireplace. What happened? 3 captains refused the restructuring. What does that mean? They believe legitimate business makes us weak. What do you believe? Dante looked toward the dark windows. My father believed fear was the only inheritance powerful enough to survive him. And you, I think fear survives by destroying everything around it. Claire approached him. Did you threaten them? Yes, Dante. I threatened to buy their companies and retire them to Florida. She stopped. Florida, Teresa suggested Arizona, but I thought that was excessive. Claire laughed. Dante's expression softened. I cannot erase what the family has done, he said. I cannot pretend every part of our wealth is clean. No, but I can decide what continues under my name. Claire reached for his hand. That decision has to be yours. It is. He looked at their joined hands. You are not my excuse, Claire. Good. You are not my absolution. Better. You are the person who asks whether I am becoming the man I claim I want to be. That sounds exhausting. It is. She smiled. Then I'm doing it correctly. Megan and Ethan married in early spring. They chose the same restaurant overlooking the Chicago River. Claire stood outside the entrance for nearly a minute before going in. The windows reflected the water and evening lights. Through the glass, she could see the place where Grant had once stood beside Sloane. Dante waited beside her. He wore a black suit and the expression of a man prepared to enter any room. "We can leave," he said. Claire looked at him. "You do not want to attend. I want what you want. That is suspiciously healthy. I have been receiving advice. From whom Teresa, Rebecca, you. Everyone appears to have opinions." Claire took a breath. "I want to go inside." Dante offered his hand. She placed hers in it. They entered together. People noticed. They always noticed Dante, but Claire did not watch their faces. She no longer needed the room to agree with her life. Megan embraced her near the dance floor. "I should have told you Grant was coming that night. Yes, I was afraid you would stay home. I might have. I am sorry." Claire looked at her cousin. "You helped me survive the worst night of my old life. I forgive you for not predicting the strangest night of my new one." Megan laughed through tears. Across the room, Sloane stood alone in a dark blue dress. She approached slowly. "Congratulations on the exam," she said. "I do not have the results yet. You took it. That is worth congratulating." Claire nodded. Sloane looked toward the river. "Grant's sentencing is next month. I heard. I still wonder how I missed so much." Claire considered her answer. "Sometimes people show us only what we are prepared to reward." Sloane looked at her. "That is generous. It was not meant to be." A small smile passed between them. It was not friendship. Not yet, but it was honest. During dinner, Ethan stood to give a speech. He thanked their families, told an embarrassing story about meeting Megan, and raised his glass toward Claire and Dante. "I should also apologize for inviting Dante Moretti to our engagement dinner." Laughter moved through the room. Ethan continued. He arrived late, kissed a woman he had never met, and announced that he had spent 6 months trying to marry her. Claire covered her face with one hand. Dante looked entirely untroubled. Ethan smiled. "For an attorney, I should have recognized a contractual dispute when I saw one." More laughter. Dante rose. Claire looked at him. "Do not make this worse. I am correcting the record." The room quieted. Dante rested one hand on the back of his chair. "That night I lied about knowing Claire. A few guests exchanged glances. I saw a man humiliating her and believed the fastest way to stop him was to place my name beside hers." Claire watched him carefully. "What I did not understand," Dante continued, "was that Claire did not need my name to give her value." His gaze found hers. She already had it. The room became completely still. I also claimed I was waiting for her answer. Dante reached inside his jacket. Claire's pulse jumped. He removed a folded piece of paper. "Not a ring, not yet. Tonight I'm not asking Claire to marry me." A murmur passed through the guests. Dante looked almost amused. "I have learned not to skip important steps." He unfolded the paper. It was their original agreement. Claire recognized her handwriting. No touching without permission. No speaking for her. No interference with her work. No ending the arrangement without her choice. Dante placed the agreement on the table. "This contract has expired." Claire stood. Dante faced her fully. "I no longer want a public arrangement or a temporary promise." His voice lowered. "I want the privilege of continuing beside you for as long as you choose me." Claire's throat tightened. He did not kneel. He did not trap her inside a spectacle. He simply waited. The entire room disappeared in the same way it had during their first kiss. But this time, there was no humiliation behind her. No stranger deciding who she should be. Only a man offering a place beside him and leaving the distance between them open. Claire stepped closer. "Your first proposal was arrogant. I agree. Your contract was manipulative. I have been informed. You are controlling. I am improving. You have armed men outside. That condition may be permanent." Claire heard laughter around them. She kept her eyes on Dante. "You are dangerous. Yes, you have done things I may never fully forgive. I know. And loving you does not mean approving everything you are. I would not trust a love that required it." Claire touched the scar near his jaw. "But you listen when I say no." Dante's expression softened. You tell me the truth when lying would be easier. He covered her hand with his. And when I stand on my own, you no longer ask me to become smaller so you can feel stronger. Hope appeared openly in his face. Claire smiled. My answer is yes. Dante's fingers tightened gently around hers. Yes to what? To continuing. His eyes held hers. May I kiss you? Claire glanced at the guests. Before everyone, only if you want them to see. She pulled him down by the front of his jacket. The kiss was warm, slow, and chosen. The first kiss had given Claire a way out of one painful moment. This one belonged entirely to her. 3 days later, Claire arrived at work and found a small bouquet of white flowers on her desk. No ribbon, no jewelry, no contract. Only a card written in Dante's hand. Still waiting for the next answer to sorrow. Dinner Friday. Claire turned the card over and wrote, yes, but I choose the restaurant. She photographed the message and sent it to him. His answer arrived immediately. As long as you choose me too. Claire smiled and set the flowers beside her computer. A new email appeared on the screen. Illinois Board of Admissions to the bar. For several seconds she could not open it. Rebecca appeared at the edge of her desk. Do you want privacy? No. Claire clicked. She read the first line once, then again. Rebecca gripped the back of the chair. Well, Claire looked up. I passed. The office erupted around her. Someone shouted. Rebecca embraced her. The junior associate she had once rescued from the filing mistake ran toward the break room to find champagne. Claire laughed, cried, and covered her mouth with both hands. Her phone rang. Dante, she answered. Did you know I know many things? Dante. Rebecca called Ethan. Ethan called me. Claire looked toward the windows. Where are you outside? She ran. Claire crossed the office, entered the elevator, and watched the numbers descend too slowly. When the doors opened, she hurried through the lobby. Dante waited at the bottom of the stone steps. No guards stood beside him. No photographers waited across the street. He wore a dark coat and held nothing in his hands. Claire stopped at the top of the steps. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. 3 years earlier, Grant had walked out of her apartment and left her believing she was the part of his life that did not belong. For years, Claire had carried that belief as though rejection were evidence. Now she understood. She had never needed a powerful man to claim her. She had needed to claim her own future. Dante opened his arms. He did not climb the steps. He did not tell her to come closer. He waited. Claire ran down to him. He caught her as she wrapped her arms around his neck. You passed, he whispered. I passed. I knew you would. No, you did not. No. He smiled against her hair. But I knew you would walk into the room. Claire lifted her head. May I kiss you, Counselor Bennett? She smiled. You may. Dante kissed her beneath the Chicago sky. Then they walked through the city side by side. His hand remained open beside hers until Claire chose to take it.